You were like right in there. It was like live. You were like, bang.
I know. We had a little technical difficulty, so we're a
Yeah.
couple of minutes late. Apologies for
Yeah.
that.
Well, hey, that's what happens, right? We don't live in a
Absolutely.
perfect world. How's everybody doing today? Welcome to Afternoons with the Muldoons.
Nice to see everybody.
Yeah. If you're here live, put live in the comments, please. If it's replay, put replay in the comments.
This is our last Afternoons with the Muldoons in the studio for a few weeks.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're going to be out and about. In fact, we're going to be flying over to Canada. So
we'll be coming from a remote mountain location, maybe next week.
It'll be a surprise. Who knows? But
who knows? But
yeah, we're really excited. You know that you're here, and be sure to tell your friends about it. Afternoons with Muldoons every Wednesday at 4 p.m. And is it just us, or has everybody got this cold that's going around?
I know. I actually thought I was being very smug because I thought I had avoided the whole thing. I thought everybody gets sick but me, and now I've got it. So, oh well.
I know.
Anyway, life goes on. One cold every couple of years is not the end of the world. So that's all right. It'll just be fun when we're snorkeling on the plane tomorrow.
Yeah.
With Kleenex jammed up our noses.
Yeah. Would you like a mask? They're complimentary.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So we have a very special guest with us today.
Yep.
We met Dave, a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah, Dave Cordner is our guest. We're going to bring him on here pretty soon.
Awesome entrepreneur. He's got a great story, and I know you guys are going to love his energy. He's got a great energy.
Yeah, and we're going to point out a few things today about for anyone who is thinking about starting an entrepreneurial journey. I know some people are like, I don't like that word. What does it mean? I don't get it. So if you're thinking about starting a business, if you're thinking about transitioning to a business that, maybe just, can provide you with some opportunity to make additional revenues. Well, maybe because, for some people, they got a lot of years into their career and it's not that simple, and they have dependents and, they have bills and things like that. But, they're thinking, hey, how can I make some more money and, still maintain what I've got and do something that I enjoy? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today with Dave, because Dave, as you'll find out, he started in the service accommodation business, and, here we are years later, which, what we'll discuss, has really grown it into something pretty remarkable. And also, I think the other thing is, for Janice and I, having moved from Canada to Northern Ireland is, we love it here, and we want more people to really come and discover Northern Ireland, because it is such an amazing, brilliant place, and the people are fantastic. And so we're going Dave has been a big advocate for promoting Northern Ireland, and I think it's fantastic. So we got a lot we're going to cover today. It's going to be a lot of fun. So like I said, just before we bring Dave on, if you're live, put live in the comments. If it's replay,
chat
put
there.
replay
Perfect.
in there. Yeah, perfect. Awesome.
Right. Okay. So let's bring Dave out.
And where's the applause?
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you. I've got the call too.
Isn't it the worst? Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. We're excited to chat with you. Before when we were talking earlier, I said to Brian, one of the things, aside from, your great entrepreneurial story and what you've managed to do with your business, that's the one thing I just really, really love, that you're such a big advocate. Belfast is such a fantastic city, and I just love seeing all your videos showing places. So we'll maybe get into a little bit of that, a few top tips from Dave later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. 100%. So, did you want to go ahead? Do you have a question right away?
So Dave is the owner of Central Belfast Apartments. And can you just give us a little sort of background, or the people a little background, the guys that are on the call here today, just a bit of how you got started in the serviced accommodation industry?
Yeah. Central Belfast Apartments, we're an Airbnb management company. And so what that means is we work with property investors and property owners who want to make money from Airbnb or serviced accommodation, but don't have the time or the expertise. So they give it to us effectively. Now that sounds like a very fully formed company, but back when I started, I think like when a lot of people start a business, I didn't really know what I was doing. I started with one property, and even if I go back even further than that, I started by helping out. And my mum and dad, they had an Airbnb, so I was just sort of learning the ropes that way, and had a real buzz. I got such a kick out of meeting guests who were coming to Belfast and Northern Ireland for the first time, and I loved it. I loved meeting them and finding out where they were going and what they had planned, and seeing their sort of they weren't too sure what they were going to do when they were here, what to make of the place. That I don't know whether it was the last resort or whatever, but I loved seeing them getting excited and me telling them all the cool places to go. And then when I would meet them at checkout, finding out, how much they had a good time. So I really got the buzz for it then. And, as I said, I took on my first property then back in 2014, and the rest sort of is history from there. I've sort of just grown it, and never really lost the buzz for Belfast, and never really lost the buzz for sort of getting the excitement and seeing the people come in and enjoying the city.
Yeah, well, what's been funny for us since we moved here, we've had Canadian friends have come, and it's really, really funny because a number of friends that we've had come visit us, they were coming to Ireland to go to Dublin and Cork and Galway and all of those places, but they were like, oh, well, we'll come up to Northern Ireland because you guys live there, so we'll come up for a few days and visit you. And then they end up loving this place probably more than a lot of the other places that they visit, because it's just so magical. It's sort of like a hidden gem, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like this city in Belfast is not like any other city in the island or even in the UK. It's completely different. It's got its own culture, its own sort of ecosystem, its own people. And, I think because of the Troubles, people just avoided it by default for a long time. And because of that, we sort of get to blow people away whenever they arrive because their expectations are low, which isn't a good thing really, but it's good that we can then blow their expectations away whenever they do come and they think, oh my God, this place is so different. It's not Dublin, it's not Derry, it's not London. I mean, it is a wee bit similar to some other of the bigger cities in the north of England and Scotland, but it's the size, I think, in Belfast. We're such a small city, but with so many things packed in, that you can walk everywhere. You feel part of it as soon as you land, and everyone's just so friendly. That's what guests always say about Belfast and Northern Ireland is the people just make it.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, everything that you said there. Like Janice said, we've run into people and, oh, we've been here and we've been there. And then, we're heading up to Donegal tomorrow. It's right. Okay. Well, you've been through Belfast yet? Maybe see them up in Port Rush. Oh, no. We just wouldn't be going there. And, for anyone listening who maybe has that preconception, I can tell you right now, not only is it one of the safest places in the world that you can visit, ironically, who would have thought, but Belfast is one of the safest and absolutely, I'd say arguably the friendliest place on this planet. People here will bend over backward to welcome you and really embrace you. And that's, like I said, we've been here 11 years, and the friendships and the relationships with people that we have here are the best. And so, we too celebrate Northern Ireland and what makes it great. And,
I was just going to ask Dave, have you seen, I'm assuming the last number of years, of course, all the mess of COVID aside, but you must have seen a huge growth in the amount of people coming to visit.
100%. I remember when they announced they were going to build the Titanic Museum, it's hard to remember before then, but believe it or not, there wasn't one for a long time. And, yes, we've always had things like the causeway, and it's never going to go away. We've had the Troubles and the tours that we do around that. And, that's dealt with in a sensitive way. That's not really, we're not cashing in on that, but we are, people come here and they have an interest in it and they want to know about it. But certainly over the last 10 years, it's just risen exponentially. But I think people who live here it still sort of passes them by. I'm sure you guys have had, and I see it all the time whenever we're out and about, that local people say, to visitors, what do you want to come here for? And I think because we live here, we don't, or not a lot of people value what we have. And we have some world-class stuff here, you know, and it's amazing exhibitions and tours and Game of Thrones and scenery and everything like that. So it's not that we've built new stuff. It's just that now people are starting to recognize what we've got and are willing to make it over and to try it. And when they, as I say, when they come, they're blown away. They love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's like so many cruise ships now that come into Belfast on a daily basis. It's remarkable because when we look out on the loch where we live, we're facing right out on the Belfast Loch, which heads out into the Irish Sea. You see these big cruise ships, these massive big cruise ships coming in and out. And, you know, it really just goes to show like that they really are promoting Belfast for all the reasons that you said. You know, the Titanic exhibition is the number one tourist attraction in the world. Right. I think, I don't know how many millions of visitors they've had through it, but it's outstanding. And, you know, whenever we're down in the Titanic Quarter, it's just amazing how many tourists are actually there, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's probably only 2 minutes from where the cruise ship docks as well. It's like, you know, just to prove my point of how small and perfectly formed it is. You know, you can get up to the north coast. You can do the Giant's Causeway all in an hour and a half from the cruise ship. And it's not just cruise, you know, there's a multitude of reasons why people are coming here. Just this week, Belfast was announced as the #1 conference destination city in the entire world, like little old Belfast. And that's because, you know, we have world-class hosting in ICC and other places. You know, you look at the TV and film productions that are made here, Game of Thrones, and you know, we have world-class talent in terms of the people, world-class studios in terms of the setup, and world-class locations, all within a short drive of each other. And that's why there's so many people and so much industry coming to Belfast and Northern Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I always say like Northern Ireland is a wee country, but it's a mighty country. And, you know, you don't have to, all you have to do is come here and start to immerse yourself and uncover and discover and explore the history. You see, like Belfast has always been a major player in certain industries and, you know, and leaders as well, of innovation, you name it. And yeah, I'm bragging, you know, I mean, we love it here and we live here and it's been our home for 11 years. And it's funny, you know, people say to me, 11 years, wow, do you think you'll stay?
I think like, so.
Mate, it's been 11 years. Yeah, we're staying, you know.
So let me ask you a question, Dave. I'm interested about the business side of things because you have had such massive success with your business. And because of the standards that you have, you know, you've won lots of awards recently, very well deserved. So the Airbnb thing, I mean, people have lots of different experiences, right? You know, we would, of course, when we travel, especially if we travel with friends, we would always look to try to find serviced accommodation rather than going to hotels for all the reasons why, you know what I mean? You can, you know, have more of a feeling of a home away from home. What is it, do you think, that has made your business the success that it is, that it stands sort of head and shoulders above what a lot of other people are doing?
I think there's a couple of things from the start. You know, I sort of got when I say my apprenticeship back with my mom and dad, it was always sort of ultimate customer service. You know, we never really came from a property background as such. So we were never landlords or property owners. Like, we dealt with tenants. It was from nothing to now we're doing a hospitality business. So it was always, customer is always right. You bend over backwards, you ask a million questions. Do you need this? What do you need? You know, what can I do for you? And it was always about the guest and their experience. And that stuck with me. And, you know, that informs everything that I do in the business. So if we're taking on new properties, the #1 thing I think about is the location, because again, you have to think of the guest experience. They're coming to a new country, a new city. They might be a bit worried about safety. Maybe their parents or grandparents have told them, oh, Belfast is a bit dodgy. So they're going to have that in their head, and they need to feel safe and welcome in the location. On top of that, the properties themselves. So again, we're always trying to do things right and do things differently, best practice, and trying to give guests the best experience at Belfast. And I always say, you know, I don't care if a guest comes and stays with me. If they do, that's great. If they see one of our videos about something to do in Belfast, that's even better, because what I ultimately want them to do is to go home to Canada or to America or Australia and tell 10 other people, geez, Belfast was brilliant. Go to Belfast. So if they stay with us, I want them to think, God, I stayed in an amazing property right in the heart of the city centre. Everything was on our doorstep. I just want them to have the best experience here. In turn, you know, those are the sort of fundamental things, you know, ensuring the guest experience, ensuring it's a great property that they're going to have fun in. And then, you know, yeah, we have tried to do a bit more innovative things in social media and getting on the old TikTok and promoting Belfast in different ways there as well. And that sort of innovation has helped us win a few awards. So we won the best service department operator in the UK at the Service Department Awards a few months ago. And then just at the weekend there, we won Northern Ireland's leading service departments at the World Travel Awards. So yeah, very honoured to win that. And I say it's an amazing team effort. We have a team on the ground who work really hard with those values that I sort of grew up with, and they're instilled throughout the team from start to finish. And yeah, it's reflected in that. So the goal is always just to ensure the guest has the best time, and they reward you with then good reviews, and you're able to charge the higher nightly rates.
Well, that's the thing, you know, I mean, it's there's nothing worse. We've all had experiences where you go somewhere on holidays and you don't get that, you know, you don't get what you're expecting, and it can just be make or break for what kind of holiday. So obviously the quality, I mean, if anybody goes onto your site, they can see the quality of the accommodation that you have. They're so well kept. They're really funky and cool, and like you said, in great central location. So it's a perfect fit for a nice holiday for people.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you're right in the fact that everyone does have a bad experience of Airbnb or serviced accommodation. And I think the industry as a whole gets a bit of a bad reputation, which is why I sort of feel like I have to work extra hard to sort of try and change that and to bring that up. You know, there are lots of things. There are certainly lots of things that guests do that aren't so great, you know.
Yeah.
But there are lots of things that hosts do, people like ourselves, who just are a bit short-sighted, try and cut a few corners to make a few more pounds, and it always backfires. It doesn't work for people. So it's much better to it's a much more fun business to be in when you're operating at the top end with the higher nightly rates, the better reviews. You don't have to worry so much about competing on price. Bookings are a lot easier to come by. Whereas if you try and cut corners and try and cheat the system, you get found out. It's a review-driven industry, so those places don't last very long.
Yeah, you're going to get better quality clients too, right?
100%. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the business. Let's go back in time here a little bit, you know, just pre-COVID. So all of a sudden, you know, here we were in the pandemic. At that time, you know, your business was already on the upswing. You know, it was beginning to grow. You were already #1 on TripAdvisor and Booking.com, and you know, you'd really drill down into ways to make your business more attractive to guests. And when there was a lot of guests coming in, then suddenly the pandemic hit and we were told to stay at home. And here you had all of these properties, you know, that were suddenly, for the most part, you know, vacant, you know. And I know for some people who had properties that maybe were doing service accommodation, you know, they said, I'm just going to rent my apartments out. And they were able to do that, and it was great. But your business, having the volume of inventory that you have, you know, that must have been pretty scary.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's like a lot of businesses. It's not just ours. So anyone in hospitality will have felt the roller coaster and the fear and you know, those first few weeks of COVID. You know, pre-pandemic, we were coming into March. It was March. We were coming into the summer of 2020, and it was an exciting time. We had forecast to break £1 million in bookings, and you know, I had big goals to grow the portfolio size. I thought everything was great and on an upward trajectory, and then COVID came, and literally within the space of about 3 or 4 days, we had when the travel restrictions were announced of do not travel, do not fly, everything is closed effectively worldwide, we had hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of bookings that was on the books, non-refundable rates, money in the bank. We're told cancel, refund everything, and lockdown effectively. So those were some dark days at the start. And like everyone, if you're running your own business, and especially if it was a hospitality business, there was a lot of, a few sleepless nights at the start anyway. And it felt like, all this was happening to us, and there was nothing we could control. I am a very optimistic person and sort of a proactive person as well. And, after a few days of nail biting, I was like, right, we can't let this beat us. We are going to end this pandemic. We're going to come out the other side. And, what can we do? I can't just sit around here. I'm not the type of person who can just lie around for months on end and enjoy a lockdown like I think a lot of people did, catch up on Netflix. I had to be like, no, I have to do something. Because we've been in business mode for so long. We've been like just driving, and then you can't just switch off. So yeah, I decided to try and focus on what I could control and to progress ourselves forward, and always with the goal of, this will end and we're going to come out of this much, much stronger. I maybe a bit more too optimistically thought it was going to be over by summer 2020. And that's how we were able to keep so many of our clients on board who, they knew that there was no travel, and, we were able to convince them that, there will be a gap. We will be able to get back to business soon. And, they did release restrictions throughout 2020 and 2021. It was on and off, but certainly by 2021, things were flying again. And all the steps and things that I'd done during the pandemic downtime really started to pay dividends. And, the growth, the trajectory that I thought we were on pre-pandemic, which I thought was great, actually pales in comparison to where we were midway through the pandemic. We were flying. We were growing at a rate faster than ever before. I was in a better position in terms of mindset and resilience and goals and determination than ever before. So whilst I'm not saying it was a good thing that COVID came, it's certainly, now we're out the other side of it. I'm definitely in a much stronger position.
This is like what you just shared there is like so important. Anybody listening here who's either, thinking of starting a business or just you want to make any kind of improvement or change in your life, this is like super important. Okay. Dave, you actually invested. You started investing in yourself and in your business during the pandemic, where a lot of people it was like batten down the hatches, stop everything. As you say, some people just went, oh, well, there's nothing to do. Fair play to someone who had a 9 to 5 and it was just like, look, you're going to get the money in your account. Don't worry about it. Watch the Netflix, happy days. But for people who self-employed, had a business that they needed to see new revenues and new opportunities being created month after month after month. Suddenly, here you were having to refund hundreds of thousands to people, of money that you were, like you say, making plans for and the next step in the goals. Suddenly now we have no choice. We got to give it back to these good people. But yet, despite that, a lot of people would have said, what are we going to do? I figure something out. Our business is ruined. We're done. You went, no, I'm going to figure this out. This is not going to be a defining moment, even though the moment in time is defining. I'm going to actually invest in my business. So I know that you invested in working on things that were within your control, like your website, finding other people to come into the business to help you grow it, who are, you didn't stop. So talk a little bit about that. Because for anyone now, even now, a lot of people, the mind is always looking for reasons to play it safe. The mind is always looking for reasons not to invest, to hang on.
Especially during times of uncertainty that we're kind of talking about now. A lot of people are like, whoa, we need to retreat. Right?
Yeah. Interest rates are going up, and should I get the mortgage? And, I'll hold off on the new car, or maybe we'll not start that business now. So just share any insights that you have that you've learned on the backside of the pandemic, the endemic, with where your business is now, which we're going to move on to and talk about in just a second. But want to hear about this first.
So, I mean, one of the biggest thing that I learned is the resilience that we are capable of in the face of adversity, you know. And I remember always wondering before when things were good, God, I wonder what would happen if, you know, in a cataclysmic event or, you know, how would I survive? You know, you always think about, well, maybe it's not everyone, but I always think about the zombie apocalypse. And I'm always like, I would be killing it in a zombie apocalypse. Right. So COVID was the closest thing to ever come to a zombie apocalypse that I was like, I'm not going to just cower away in a corner here. I'm going to be coming out and dominating this thing. And I think part of it was for my own mental health that, as I say, it, you know, I think a lot of people that can get depressed or anxious or stuck or procrastinate, and it can be because there's too much value placed on the outside world and things that are happening to them, and they can feel powerless. And that's literally how it was. You know, we were all being told by the outside world, there's a virus, you have to stay at home, close your doors, you can't do anything. But we could still do some stuff, you know. So I read a lot. I invested in new branding for ourselves. We got a new website. You know, there was loads of things you could do in the background. And that was such a powerful thing for me. It felt like an achievement. You know, everything I did, you know, I'd be listening to audiobooks when I was out from a one walk a day or out for a run or whatever. And I feel like I've achieved something today, because there was just that sense of all the days blended into one. And it was, I could, you know, anyone who was in business or doing anything, you know, an athlete, you were sharp. And during those lockdowns, it was easy to just get fat and lazy, you know, and I didn't want that to happen, because I knew it was going to end. And I knew there were other people out there who were sharpening themselves up as well. And I thought, I'm having this. I'm going to be one of those. Plus, I saw an opportunity because, you know, in our business in tourism, the big bodies like Tourism Ireland, Visit Belfast, Tourism Northern Ireland, they're big publicly funded institutions, and they aren't going to be wasting money on come and visit Ireland next year whenever COVID's over, because they didn't know when it would be over. You know, their marketing budget is millions, and they can spend hundreds of thousands on one video. So they have to just turn things off until they have certainty of what's going to work. Us as a small business was much more lean and much more agile and able to try things. And, you know, I knew if the airwaves were a lot quieter, well, if I start shouting, I'm going to get heard a lot more. So that's what we did. And yeah, there was just loads of things. And literally it did start to feel like I was continue to train myself. My mind was working always. I had goals. I had things that I could focus on. And it kept me occupied, and it kept me optimistic, because all these little wins that I was getting that no one else was seeing, because everyone was just, you know, watching Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad on Netflix, that I was like beavering away in the background doing this and learning, you know, all the videos that I was doing. I was getting the crap out of the way when no one was watching, so that as things open up, I've got the reps in, you know, I'm stronger. I'm just better.
Exactly. And, you know, that's the thing, you know, I just want to say, like, you know, when the shit hits the fan, you know, we all have a choice. We can either try and look for resources that are going to help us, which is fine, or we can get resourceful. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's what a lot of people did. That's what you did. And one of the things that you did was you really started to explore how to leverage social media to grow your business and your brand. And, you know, I mean, I remember like some of the earlier videos and stuff, and, you know, but you've got kind of a neat strategy around that, you know, like you're promoting Belfast, but then you're also, you know, helping people who want to get into the service accommodation business as well with your coaching. We'll talk a little bit about that, but with the social media thing, I mean, you really got behind it, and it's really helped you, like, and maybe just talk about that to anyone who maybe has a business and they're like, oh, we've got 1,200 likes, or we've got 50, you know, 1,000 or 5,000 likes, versus, you know, content creation, putting yourself out there, being visible. How's that impacted your business if you hadn't done that?
Yeah, well, I mean, for the last pre-COVID, for the last few years, I'd always heard about video as the future. Video, you know, you have to be doing video. I've read loads of books where they're talking about, you know, you have to be doing video. It's such an effective way to talk about your brand and to get your message out there. And I always thought, yeah, I'll maybe do that later. Just classic procrastination. You know, I don't have time for that, when really I could have made time, but I was just a bit uncomfortable with it. So I was like, ugh. But during COVID, you know, it's the ultimate rainy day. If you don't have time to do something during a lockdown, then you're just not doing it. And I think that's sort of what happened to me. I thought, well, I have to be doing it now. So I did. I started, and it was uncomfortable. You're holding the camera, you just feel weird talking to yourself in an empty room where no one else is talking back. And it was really, really strange, but I knew, like so many of these other things, like the goal is, you know, it's like a growth mindset. Yeah, everyone's crap at the start when you start doing videos. You know, there's no book that you can just read the book, turn the phone on, and you're just like, hey, it doesn't work like that. You have to put the reps in, do the hard work, and you're going to get there. So that's what I started doing. And if you look at any of our YouTube channel videos at the start, like I was nervous, I was mumbling, it was just poor, but that's how everyone's are. Every single person who starts in anything is going to be a bit rusty. And you just get more attuned as you go through. But in terms of what we did, yeah, so we sort of have two social media platform or presences. So I have one, Central Belfast Apartments, where I'm showcasing the city. So, you know, we have a big portfolio now of about 60 properties. We're welcoming thousands of guests every week. I can't get that buzz I got at the start by meeting all the guests when they arrive and telling them all about the cool places to go. But I can do a cool video of it, and I can send the video to them and showcase everyone else, or show it to everyone else who comes. And then in actual fact, that's a much better way to reach many more people and to show them the places that are so good in our wee city. So I get a real buzz from that. And there's fun stuff in that too. You know, I get to do like the best Guinness in Belfast and best walks, best everything sort of thing. So during COVID, we were doing best walks and best things to do outside and all these sorts of things. So again, like Visit Belfast wasn't talking about anything. Tourism Northern Ireland wasn't talking about anything the whole way through. So we were getting traction with those, and it was great. And yeah, relatively recently, then I started to do some videos about how to do Airbnb, and I really enjoyed that. I loved like sort of showing the best practice, and you know, it was almost like passing on the knowledge that I got from my mum and dad whenever I was starting out. It's evolved in my head. You know, I'm a much bigger entity and company and business than they had got to, and we've managed many more guests and stuff. But I still like passing on that best practice, because there are, as I said at the start, there are so many operators out there who are just offering rubbish and don't care about guests, are only in it to make money. And it's that mindset shift. You know, you need to love the business, you need to love hospitality to do well in this industry. So that's why I started doing videos like that, and they've taken off well as well.
So Dave, would you say, because I know I would absolutely agree with you, there's the people that just don't care at all, and they just think, oh, we'll rip people off and, you know, take their money. But there are those people who I would assume are probably coming to you for your help and your coaching, who want to start an Airbnb business. But I think there could be a lot of naivety there, where people go, oh, wow, I could get a property, and instead of making this much a month, I could make this much if I rented it out as an Airbnb. And I think a lot of people go into it maybe with the rose-colored glasses on, thinking that it's going to be fabulous. But there's a lot of stuff I know, for me, just knowing people like yourself and other people in serviced accommodation, that it can be a real nightmare, even if you do have the best intentions. You know, so yeah. Is that the kind of stuff where you're really helping people with those pitfalls that really do want to do a good job?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there is anyone who starts an Airbnb to just rip people off. I mean, why would that's like a con person, you know? And I don't think anyone starts a genuine business to try and just rip people off. But there are people who start a business and are thinking, well, to hell with the customers, I just want the money. And that's half ignorance and half naivety, like you said. They think, I'll just get a property, or I've got a property here. This is a great little terrace house on Shankill Road or Falls Road, and, you know, makes me a good yield every month. I'll just put Airbnb in that and it'll be fine. And I think it's that naivety that, one, guests don't want to come and stay in that area. Two, a property that might be set up fine for tenants who are going to live there and don't really need it to be top class, that's not going to fly for guests either. And three, if you're not willing to put the time in to deliver good customer service to those guests when they're there, because you're used to tenants who only contact you once every 6 months, these guests are going to be contacting you, every day potentially. You're going to have hundreds of guests a week or a month, and they're all going to have their own unique problems and questions that they demand answers to because they're paying customers. And I think a lot of people sort of stumble into it, and they often only see the property and think that's the only part of the business. But there's so many other parts that are needed in the back end. Who does your linen? Who does your cleaning? How do you stop party bookings from getting in? Where do you even get bookings from? And there's all of that in the background that people don't see. And so I think what happens is they stumble into it and think, oh my God, this is too much. And instead of trying to actively get better at it and have that growth mindset and determination to make it work, they think, I'll just do the bare minimum. I'll ignore messages. I'll not clean the place as thoroughly as I should. I'll be a bit lax about who I let in. I'm sure it'll be fine. And it's not. It just comes crashing down around them. And then they'll be telling everyone Airbnb's rubbish. It's oversaturated in my area. There's no money to be made. Really, it's just a bad service that they've been offering or a bad property.
Yeah. So, based on that, you've written a book called The 5 Fundamentals of Running a Successful Service Accommodation Business. So at the end, Dave's going to go into the Facebook feed and drop in a link to that. Plus, you've also got this really cool, basically, you go through a survey, you answer some questions, and it really helps you figure out where you are in that journey. Is that right? And like you'll have that link in there if people want to go and take that.
Yeah, I can add that in. It's a little scorecard. So it's literally it's 2 minutes. It's a free quiz type thing. And it's about, are you ready for serviced accommodation? So it's literally asking those questions, teasing out those questions to identify gaps in people's heads. Do you like phoning people unannounced? Do you know the best place to get bookings? Are you a people person? All these sorts of questions to try and tease out what I've just been talking about the things that people aren't always front and center of their head. That's the scorecard, and it's a useful thing, and it's based on those 5 fundamentals that I've sort of distilled down from the 15 years or so that I've been involved in serviced accommodation. And it's those questions ask around those 5, and those 5 fundamentals are property. So ensuring that, yes, you do need a property that's good, it's set up right, and is decorated well, and is finished to a good standard in the right location. People, how to deal with those guests. They often do ask frequently annoying questions, and it's about a mindset shift that hosts need, especially if they've been dealing with tenants, because tenants and tourists are very, very different people with different expectations. Promotion is where you get bookings from. Everyone's heard about Airbnb. There are vast amounts of other booking websites out there, as well as social media to get bookings, direct bookings. So there are lots of different things to think about when it comes to those bookings. Processes is probably the biggest one in the back end. It is all of the back end, and it's the things like I talked about. The cleaning. Who does the cleaning and when? Who does your linen? Like, who changes the beds? Who washes it? Who irons it? How do you take payments from guests? How do you set up minimum nightly stays and rates that change across the year? How do you manage all your listings across all the different booking sites? So there is a massive amount of stuff that goes on in the background that you don't even know you don't know. It's like someone said, I run a bakery. Oh, it's easy, you just bake bread. And it's like, no, well, wait till I tell you about this, that you've no idea about what goes on in the back end of this bakery. And it's like that in any business, really. The 5th fundamental is protection. And, it's the most sobering, because I think, to use the word naive again, people either procrastinate about getting started because they've heard the horror stories and think, oh, that's not for me. Or they're naive and think, there's no problem. That won't happen to me. And the reality is it will. You know, those aren't fairy tales. This is real. These people exist. These party people will come and try and get your place, use it. We had that during the pandemic when Dublin and everywhere else sort of down south were closed for hospitality, but Belfast was like this shining beacon of openness. All the bars and restaurants were open, so we just had an absolute tidal wave of people. Not us, like the whole city. Every 18, 19-year-old from Dublin and everywhere down south flocked to Belfast to go a bit crazy. So there's all these things that you need to think about. And, you know, yes, the reason I wrote the book is to try and pass on some of that knowledge, to try and raise the industry standard, hopefully in Belfast, because again, remember, I want people to come here, even if they stay with us or if they stay with someone else. I want the guest, the visitor, to have a good time and leave and go back home and say, that was amazing. And maybe the next time the people will come and stay with us.
Great. So if someone's interested in pursuing, you know, how to build a service accommodation business, Airbnb business, or take their existing business and maybe they want to scale that, obviously you'll drop some links in there where people can maybe, I know that you've got your Airbnb coach now, and there's a lot of people who have reached out to you, who have, you know, they've been on calls with you and they're learning those fundamentals and you're really helping them with their business. I know that you're currently working on a group coaching program. I don't want to give too much away on that, but there's some exciting things out there because I think that a lot of people today really need options. One thing we know on the other side of the pandemic was a lot of people said, I got to go back to what I was doing, but I don't want that. I want more than that. And, you know, like you say, you know, maybe they have a property or two and they've decided maybe I can start to explore that. So, you know, they can get a hold of you. Obviously there's like through Instagram and things like that, and DMing you as well, I suppose, right?
Yeah. So we have, there are lots of different ways. So we have TikTok account, Airbnb Coach, where I share loads of little short, snappy snippets of information. Also on Instagram as well, if someone wants to message direct. I'm on LinkedIn. Our YouTube channel has tons of information and videos on there as well. And we also have a workshop coming up to really spell everything out. It's a half-day workshop. It's online. It's coming up in a few weeks' time, the 21st of October. There are a few tickets left. Again, I can drop the link into the comments for that. Great. It's on Eventbrite. And just to touch on something you said there, it was really interesting, and it's something that I've seen come up with people on calls, is that, you know, I talked about during my experience of lockdown, I was used to firing on all cylinders. I couldn't cope with stopping, so I just started beavering away at other things to grow us quietly during lockdown. I think what a lot of people who were in work and were furloughed and didn't have any work, you know, their mind started to wander. Am I happy in this job? I think, you know, I've always wanted to start this other business. I think I'm destined for something better, something more. And they fleshed these ideas out. And a lot of people did start businesses and have went on to do great things. And whenever furlough ended, they just said, well, I'm not coming back. I've got my own gig here. But I think there's a sizable amount of people who never really took that step, thought about it, and it now keeps them awake at night in bed. They're in work, they're back to the 9 to 5, but they're still thinking about, I wish I had started that. And I see that all the time on calls. So that's why there's different levels to what I offer. You know, it's not, you don't need to just jump straight into a group coaching program if you don't have a property, but there are lots of ways you can learn, get ready, prepare before you even get a property. And this workshop that's coming up will be a great way to do that. It's going to talk through all the 5 fundamentals so that, you know, from day one, when you actually get your property, you're going to be better than 99% of all the competitors in your area from day one. Because what a lot of people do is they buy the property, they think, okay, now I'm ready, let's go. And then it's like, oh my God, this and this and this and all this stuff I didn't know about. By doing the workshop, by reading the book, by checking out all our social media, you're going to get that experience of how to run an Airbnb the same way as I could get it about how to run this bakery that I was talking about earlier. As soon as the doors open, I'm flying. So that's what we can offer.
That's fantastic. So you'll drop those links in there for anybody that's watching or that's going to catch the replay. So that's the 21st of October, your your workshop. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and that's live interactive, right? So
it's live. It's on Zoom.
Perfect.
Plenty of time to ask questions and get feedback.
Good. So we've only got a couple of minutes left here. Got to wrap up, but I just want to say that anyone out there, like if you're thinking about this business, like get in and really consider signing up for this workshop, because if you really want to learn any kind of business, you want to learn it from people who really know it. And I know for Janice and I and many other people, Dave is the real deal. Okay, Dave walks the talk. Dave has put the effort in. Dave has made the mistakes, but he's also had the wins. And I think this year is going to be, I think, possibly your best year ever on the other side of the pandemic here.
100%. All the work that we put in during COVID paid off. All of our clients who trusted us to keep managing their property during those lockdowns are getting rewarded. The pent-up demand that I was shouting about through my optimism on LinkedIn whenever no one else was talking about how Belfast is going to bounce back. The Americans who love to come here and Canadians who, the grass in Ireland has never, ever been greener than whenever they were forced to stay at home for a year or two. And that demand hit like a tidal wave. On top of that, hotels who were much bigger, clunkier businesses were much slower to open and close. So they just decided we're just going to stay closed. The service department industry is very lean and agile, and we were able to cope with massive amounts of demand for the city. And that is only going to get better. I was at the Visit Belfast AGM yesterday, and they were talking about how supposedly demand still is not back to pre-pandemic levels. I felt like, I knew something that no one else knew. For service departments, it's bigger than ever. So we're on for £2 million in bookings for this calendar year, which is by far a record breaker. Every month since I think January or February 2021 has been record breaking. The demand for people to come is just huge to this city, for city breaks in general. And I think that's really key coming into Christmas and this potential recession. People might not have the money to go on a big, far afield, expensive holiday, but a little city break up to Belfast might be just the thing, nice and cheap. If they get on a plane from GB, it still feels like a holiday. And yeah, I think Belfast is in for, we're just getting started, I say everyone, don't get me started on Belfast tourism, but this city is just getting started.
Yeah, we agree. We agree 100%. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for being here with us today. And like I said, not to bang on, but for anybody listening, you said about leaning in and investing in yourself, and look at what's happened since the pandemic. So anybody that's thinking about, getting into serviced accommodation, this would be a good move.
If you've got property or properties, I should say, and you should get in touch with Dave. I know, like you had said a second ago, like your clients are really being really happy this year. They've made the kind of yield that no sort of letting would ever produce. So make sure you get in touch with Dave, have a conversation with him, because I do think you are taking on more properties now, aren't you? For
Absolutely,
owners?
yeah. And we see many of our clients get what they would have gotten rent from one weekend of serviced accommodation. So the scope for income from it is massive. So yeah, we're offering both sides. If they want just hands off, give it to us, Central Belfast Apartments. We can manage it for them. If they want to learn how to do it themselves, I can teach them.
Fantastic.
Perfect. That's great.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody. See you next week
from Canada.